All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call the March 2024 meeting of the Finance Committee to order. Welcome aboard. We have obviously a quorum. Thank you all for joining. David, are there any public speakers?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, there are 3 public speakers today. The first 2 are remote and the last one's in person. As a reminder, we ask that all public speakers adhere to the MTA's rules of conduct and decorum. I would also like to remind our public speakers that in the interest of time and fairness to all speakers, we limit everyone to 2 minutes. Please be aware there will be a warning beep to remind you that you have 30 seconds to conclude your remarks. Our first speaker is Maddie Bucky's Highland, who will be followed by Charlton D'Souza.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Matty W. Bucky's Highland. Today, I'm going to speak about congested pricing. Originally, I was not going to speak today, but because the MTA is expected to vote on a resolution to green light congested pricing, I do have some concerns. As Commissioner Zuckerman, you pointed out on the December 6th board meeting that people would pay more, just a little bit more. But my Commissioner David Mack, was the only no vote against the measure for that. In fact, with New Jersey settling the lawsuits, State Senator Brad Hoylman Siegel requested Judge Brian Martinotti of the United States District Court of New Jersey to recuse himself for the case, as he's the husband of the former a commissioner for the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, Dinah Martinotti. The last topic I do want to speak about is I would only support congested pricing only if we repealed the 3/8 sales tax authorized from the New York State Department of Taxation and Finance to use for the Metropolitan Transportation Authority. I do support having less cars on the road and believe the threat of climate change is real. But the amount by congested price unless we repeal a certain sales tax. Thank you. Have a safe night home. God bless each one of you. Mr. Keller?
Thank you. Our second speaker is Charlton D'Souza, who will be followed by Jason Anthony.
Good afternoon, everyone. Charlton D'Souza, President, Passengers United. So obviously we do not support congestion pricing, and there are many reasons why, because the existing subway and bus network cannot handle the overflow crowds. That congestion pricing, will cause people to get on the subway, buses, and railroad. And right now we don't have any fare incentives for Southeast Queens and other transit deserts in New York. So for instance, for Southeast Queens, we lost the Atlantic Ticket Weekly, but we did not get a City Ticket Weekly yet. Express buses are $7. That's too expensive. The express bus fare should really be $4 to entice more people to get on the express bus. And right now, with the Queens bus redesign, some people are going to have to pay 2 times because of the way the bus redesign is. So, we need a third transfer. And I've been hearing a lot of things about free buses. The problem is free buses only work for a certain amount of people, but then those people still have to pay when they enter the system. So this is why I just think we need, a third transfer. You get a subway to bus transfer, and then you have another transfer, and like this, it works out for everyone. So we're not supporting congestion pricing, and also Nice Bus was not considered in any of this. They still don't have Omni, which is an issue. Same thing with Beeline Bus. They don't have the Omni installed. And we're having a lot of problems with the MetroCard vending machines where people cannot load up their fares. The machines are constantly broken. So this is going to be quite a huge undertaking to when congestion pricing starts. I think a lot of people are going to be upset. You guys have to get these Omni machines up and running, and you have to make it accessible for everyone. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Our final speaker is Jason Anthony.
Hey, Neil. Hey, Kevin. Last but not least, Jason Anthony here. I know that you guys are going to vote on Wednesday regarding congestion pricing. Like I've been saying all day, I'm not gonna pressure you guys to either vote yes or no. I'm gonna tell you guys plain and simple. Vote with your conscience. But just keep in mind the following. People with disabilities, low income people that represent the whole MTA network. This month, yours truly attended the New Jersey Transit Corporation board meeting, and its president, Kevin Corbett, insulted us. So, with that said, yours truly will be keeping advocating that New Jersey Transit Corporation and, let's say, Phil Murphy and Josh Kaihammer will have to come to the table and settle the lawsuit with us. So count on people like me and others to keep advocating that NIMBYs like New Jersey to settle the lawsuit with the MTA once and for all. So with that said, I'll see you guys on Wednesday morning.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That concludes the public speaking session.
Thanks, David, and congratulations on your tan. It looks fantastic. It's we were actually commenting on how lovely it looks. You had a great trip, I hope. Anyway, minutes of the February 26th. Minutes of the February 26th, 2024 meeting have been distributed. Are there any comments, corrections, deletions? Hearing none, a motion. Thank you, Sammy. Yolanda, can I have a second? All right, thank you. All in favor, say aye. Aye, opposed, abstention, motion passes. Excellent. First item is your monthly financial performance report, formerly known as Budget Watch. David?
Year-to-date February 2024 preliminary results compared to the adopted budget were unfavorable by $6 million or 1%, while the month of February was unfavorable by $29 million or 10%. Operating revenues on a year-to-date basis were $7 million or 1% favorable, while passenger revenues were $26 million unfavorable. This is offset by favorable toll revenue of $21 million and favorable other operating revenue of $11 million. As a reminder, the adopted budget includes below the line a farebox revenue loss provision of $100 million for 2024 to offset the unfavorable passenger revenue results. For February, operating revenues were $25 million, or 4% favorable. Passenger revenues were $8 million unfavorable, while toll revenue was $17 million favorable, and other operating revenue was $16 million favorable. Passenger revenues through February remained $229 million, or 24% below passenger revenue in 2019, while toll revenue exceeded 2019 toll revenue levels by $32 million, or 11%. These changes from 2019 are adjusted to reflect rate changes in both fares and tolls over this 2019 to 2024 period. Operating subsidies on a year-to-date basis were $6 million, or 1% favorable. This reflects favorable petroleum business tax of $47 million, of which $36 million was due to delay until January in the transfer of December 2023 receipts. Additionally, investment income was favorable by $11 million, and CDOT subsidy was favorable by $7 million. However, unfavorable results were recorded for the urban tax of $10 million, MRT of $28 million, the for-hire vehicle surcharge of $4 million, and city subsidy to MTA bus of $2 million. Additionally, the payroll mobility tax was unfavorable by $28 million, and local operating assistance was favorable by $5 million, although both the PMT and the local operating assistance are timing related. For February, operating subsidies were $21 million, or 3% unfavorable. Capital subsidies year-to-date through February were $3 million unfavorable due to receipts from the real property transfer tax surcharge, which is referred to as the mansion tax. Operating expenses year-to-date February were unfavorable by $26 million, or 1%, reflecting higher labor expenses of $38 million and other expense adjustments of $13 million, which are offset by favorable non-labor expenses of $24 million. Overruns were at Transit, Metro North, and FimTech, with other agencies reporting favorable results of expenses. For February, operating expenses were $40 million, or 3% unfavorable. Labor expenses were $24 million unfavorable. Non-labor expenses were $6 million unfavorable, and other expense adjustments were $10 million unfavorable. Debt service was $8 million, or 2% favorable year-to-date February, primarily due to the timing of debt service accruals. And for February, debt service expenses were favorable by $7 million, or 3%, primarily due to the timing of debt service accruals, the reversal of a prior negative timing variance, and lower than budgeted variable rates. There are further details in the financial performance report.
Thank you, David. And if I may, I was remiss in not welcoming Mira and Mark, new commissioners, to our committee. Thank you for joining. Hopefully you'll become permanent members of this homeless committee as a whole. It's fun to do addition and subtraction at the end of the day, so more than welcome to join us. Any questions for David? If hearing none, I'll just suggest that I like seeing the uptick in February in both subway and bus paid revenue. So, anything you want to comment on that?
Yeah, if you look at the graphs, we had a little bit of uptick from January to February. Again, this is, I think David reported out some unfavorable budget numbers in terms of ridership revenue for transit and commuter. And remember, the way our budget works, we continue to have growing paid ridership throughout the year. So even though we can get an uptick in ridership, it's got to keep pace with our budget. And, it's not much different news on the revenue side than before, where, we're seeing good news on the commuter rails, generally speaking. Subway's doing okay. Buses continue to underperform in terms of paid ridership, and nothing seems to deter motorists on our bridge and tunnel crossings. They set records, and so that's that. So it's going to be something we have to watch really closely. Obviously, as we've described before, we need to make improvements on fare evasion. So all our returning riders that keep coming back, the high percentage of them actually pay versus the alternative. So we'll keep an eye on it. Expenses, we were a little bit over budget. Again, a lot of timing related issues. We came off of a pretty big underspend last year. Some of that, materials, and contracts go across the year. Labor, we put in a much more aggressive budget on total labor expenses, and we're still working on hitting that aggressive target. So stay tuned on that.
Well, thank you for that. And for our new board members, in our budget watch, we have this McKinsey midpoint that designates for us what we need to track our budget towards as we grow back paid ridership, and we track against it what we're doing. So it's a very helpful graphical depiction of how you're doing. Yeah, please.
Yeah, just one other commentary is, David rattled off the numbers on all our dedicated taxes. Again, it's a big pool of taxes. I'd say the way looking at all the underlying data, I think the payroll mobility tax, which was the big part of the budget fix last year, is coming in pretty close to expectations. It can be off one month over another month, but it's generating. Again, where we're seeing the headwinds continuing is in the real estate related taxes, where we are not, again, we forecast much lower numbers last year. Good thing, that's how it came in. We're projecting some recovery this year, and that recovery hasn't started yet. The mortgage rates remain high. The commercial real estate market, is still sorting itself out in New York. So we're going to be watching that closely.
All right, thank you. All right. Please, Andrew.
Much as we now have celebrities announcing in the subway system why it's not cool to surf and why your life is in danger. Maybe we should have them explain why it's not cool to beat the fare.
Yeah, this is something actually our chief customer officer is working on as we speak. Names are being floated of very high-profile, influential folks, and hopefully that campaign, I don't know if anyone wants to talk about it at this point, but I think it's premature. But I hear rumblings of us having a campaign to that very effect. So, Andrew, you could be the first to suggest any celebs you may be close with on the Upper West Side. If there's anyone in your building that you know, please submit them to Shanifa. Go ahead, please.
No, I was just saying I posted myself paying the fare, but it didn't seem to go viral at all. So
Yeah, having you jump the turnstile probably be not the right image to have.
I liked it, Kevin.
thank you.
All right, back to the fun. Formerly known as Finance Watch, Olga, please. Sorry, Norman, go ahead. Sorry, please. Please, go ahead.
I had almost regretted pressing my button, but have you considered flipping the equation on shaming and post the people who are, first of all, I think that banning people from the system is an entirely unenforceable rule, and just what we need is one more unenforceable rule. However, if we can't enforce fair paying, I don't know how we're going to enforce that. But I'll trust you guys being smarter than me, and we're going to enforce that. Okay. But how about shaming the people that we have the names now? Like, I was just in Bologna, and they got a thing on a wall of all the people the fascists killed when they ran Bologna. And I feel like, putting that up as if you publish the people who we pretend to ban from the system, perhaps that would have a sort of social pressure that might get them to behave.
David?
I also want to bring the board back to the fact that our main problem is buses and a 50% failure to pay in Staten Island and 30% system-wide. I don't want this to be focused on Black and Latino young people with, let's get a rapper, that will reach it. Let's go to the old lady getting on and the guy getting on in a three-piece suit. I want this to be something that doesn't further sort of criminalize or focus on not the main problems in this system.
And let's be clear, this committee is a finance committee, and we're No, it's a great question. I think our general method is no one around this table knows the right levers to pull. Our job in this committee is to identify the problem, and the problem is that we have a massive, near $1 billion fare evasion problem. Not that close, but we're getting there. And it is becoming endemic, and we're all bothered by it. And I've heard enough people on this committee talk about their own individual experiences of seeing it. And it doesn't matter, to your point, black, brown, white, young, old. It is endemic to the system, and it is a problem, and it is affecting us financially. And someone, meaning us, have to do something about it, whether it's public service announcements or enforcement or even shaming. I'm not the right person to come up with what the right techniques are, but we do know financially it is a real problem. And if we can plug it, my God, we've got a benefit to the system. Do you want to say something? Okay, great. Olga, over to you, please.
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, committee members. Today we're reporting results of 3 transactions that we priced earlier this month. 2 of them are competitively sold tax-exempt and taxable bond anticipation notes, and the third is negotiated sale of $1.289 billion transportation revenue refunding bonds. You can find a summary of the results of the 3 sales in the financial performance report on pages 10 and 11. With respect to the transportation revenue bonds refunding, I just want to note that this was the first sizable issuance of fixed-rate transportation revenue bonds in the last 3 years. And you might remember that 3 out of 4 rating agencies that rate transportation revenue bonds upgraded them last year. And Fitch Ratings very timely again upgraded transportation revenue bonds under their revised criteria from A to AA just before the sale, which created a nice positive momentum as we were getting ready to go to the market. The refunding resulted in 99 million or 9% of par of net present value savings. We think a significant portion of these savings is due to the improved ratings, but also we benefited from the relatively low supply that week and available investor cash. I just want to say that this transaction validated the rating agency action, and we think we can now utilize transportation revenue bonds more going forward, particularly with respect to refunding transactions. The refunding deal is scheduled to close this Wednesday, March 27th. We will be taking a little bit of a break from the capital market activities in April because we're working on updating our annual disclosure, but I'll be back reporting our plans for bond sales in May and over the summer next month. This concludes my report for today.
Kevin?
Thanks, Olga. Yeah, look, I think this is really great news. Remember, the transportation revenue bonds are the credit that's primarily backed by our fare box and represents the, kind of the strength of the MTA system. And so, a year ago, right, we had big budget deficits, got the problem solved. All the rating agencies upgraded this credit, and we were finally able to bring a very large fixed rate transaction with maturities that go out 25 years, backed by the upgraded MTA credit. And as Olga mentioned, we're able to reduce interest costs by, almost 100 million present value. Most of that, or a large part of it, attributable to getting the upgrade. And this is the first time in 3 years, really, since the pandemic, that we've been able to bring this credit into the market. And so I think, importantly, investors gave a vote of confidence to the MTA credit, by purchasing this. Just to give an example, New York State, which has really highly rated credits backed by the state's personal income tax and sales tax, was in the market the week before. That's almost like our, risk-free rate in New York State. And we were about 25 or 30 basis, 0.25% higher in interest rate, which is pretty remarkable. So the state was able to, for example, borrow at 4, and we borrowed at 4.25. Pretty tight differential, where, back in when we were under, more uncertainty, bonds in the market would trade at, a full 2 percentage points difference between us and the state. So
That is a great testament to our closing our budget and having a very clear outlook. Any questions for Olga? Okay, hearing none. David, back to you on all agency items, please.
First, the Finance Committee work plan anticipated for March a request for authorization to file for and accept federal grants for federal fiscal year 2024. This request will come before the Finance Committee and the Board next month. The first item on today's agenda for all agency and MTA headquarters, we seek approval to authorize the filing with the State of New York, the annual MTA all-agency procurement report for the period January 1, 2023 to December 31, 2023, as required under Section 2879 of the Public Authorities Law. The report provides contract information by each agency for which payments were made in 2023. Each agency report has been submitted separately in agency committee exhibit books, and Jim McBride is present if there are any questions.
Can I have a motion to approve the filing of the all-agency procurement report, please? Thank you, Lisa. Second. Thank you, Blanca. Any questions, comments on it? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstention, motion passes. Lizette, procurement, please, the singular one.
Just the one. There is one action this month for MTA headquarters for Finance Committee approval in the estimated amount of $19.4 million. This action is found in the March 2024 Finance Committee book. This item is a 2-year extension of a contract awarded to Action Carting Environmental Services, Inc. to continue refuse removal and recycling services for New York City Transit, MTA Bus, and Staten Island railway stations, yards, barns, depots, and administrative facilities in the amount of $19.4 million. It's needed to allow the MTA to develop a solicitation for a consolidated procurement of services through a category management approach that will aggregate requirements across all of the operating agencies in common geographic regions and potentially generating cost savings for the agency. The primary reason the additional time is needed to develop a new solicitation is to allow time for the New York City Commercial Waste Zone program to be fully implemented. The program divides the city up into 20 zones for commercial waste hauling in order to reduce truck traffic associated with commercial waste collection. And given the new program, the MTA will need to see the effect on the vendor community in the market and how they would compete in the MTA's broad procurement. The additional time will also allow the execution of a third-party audit of our waste stream, the result of which will better inform the scope of work for this all-agency procurement. The audit results will provide a guideline for the credit percentage to be received for the recyclables.
Okay, any questions for Lizette? We have a motion to approve the Action Carting extension, please. Thank you and thank you. I'll take that as a first and a second. Thank you. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstention. Motion passes. Thank you, Lizette. David, information items.
The first information item is the 2023 annual MTA prompt payment report, which is required to be filed with the State Controller, State Budget, the Senate Finance Committee, and the Assembly Ways and Means Committee. Prompt payment legislation requires MTA to make interest payments on invoices not paid within 30 days. In 2023, MTA made interest payments of $58,324 for the January 2023 to July 2023 period, and payments of $118,920 will be made for the August 2023 to December 2023 period. The annual report is provided in your materials, and Roy Grace Stewart is present if there are any questions.
Any questions for David? All right, hearing none, information items on agency procurements from Lizette. Back to you, please.
There are 2 information items for Long Island Railroad this month, approved by its respective committee. The first is a request that the board formally ratify the declaration of an immediate operating need and approve the award of a 10-year original manufacturer purchase agreement for M7 propulsion system equipment upgrade, overhaul, and bench test equipment to Mitsubishi Electric Power Products, Inc. The second item, also to Mitsubishi, is a request that the board formally ratify the declaration of an immediate operating need and approve a 5-year contract for HVAC and propulsion replacement parts utilized on LIRR's M7 electric rail cars, Metro North's M7 and M8 electric rail cars, and New York City Transit subway car needs. Immediate operating needs were declared and awards were made due to the delay resulting from the lack of required number of voting members in attendance at the February 2024 MTA board meeting. There's 1 information item for Metro North Railroad this month, approved by its respective committee. This item is a request for board approval to award a 5-year miscellaneous service contract to retain pre-qualified vendors to furnish emergency and scheduled bus services on an as-needed basis for railroad passengers and/or crews between stations throughout the railroad's New York and Connecticut operating territories during scheduled and emergency track outages and service disruptions. There are no information items for bridges and tunnels this month, and there are no information items for transit this month.
Thank you. Any questions for Lizette? For Mark and Mira's benefit, we effectively repeat procurements that have been done in the actual committees for purposes of information because of money flowing, and it's just a matter of good habit for us. But if you had heard those earlier, it's because you actually did hear them earlier in other committees. Exactly. Well said. All right, all right, monthly consolidated reports are in your committee book. Mr. Florio, take us home with real estate, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, real estate has 3 action items for consideration and approval. The first is an administrative item for the MTA. It is the all-agency real property disposition guidelines and all-agency personal property disposition guidelines required by the Public Authorities Law, sections 2895-28. The second is a transactional item for the MTA. It's a lease with 3030 Equities, LLC, for an MTA Police Department training facility in 3030 Northern Boulevard in Queens. The third action item is for MTA Grand Central Madison. It's a lease with Trackback LLC for a bar and cafe on the Grand Central Madison Concourse. There are, in addition, 4 information items. I can go through those now, or would you like to?
Let's just vote on the action items first, then we can come to information items. And again, the third item is for, as Jana was mentioned before, for tracks to get back on track, so to speak, pun intended if awful. So may I have a motion to approve these 3 real estate items? Thank you, David. Second, Hada. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye, opposed, abstentions. The real estate items pass. Back to you, David.
There are 4 information items. The first is for New York City Transit, and it's a lease between New York City Transit and J.W. Mays for office space in support of the relocation of the Jamaica Bus Terminal in Queens. The second and third items are for MTA Long Island Railroad and include a temporary license with the City of Long Beach for maintenance trailer adjacent to the Long Beach station, and a license with the Town of Islip for the operation of a signal hut near the river crossing in central Islip. The fourth and final item is our standard report on agreements entered into directly by the Real Estate Department pursuant to board policy.
Any questions for David? Hearing none. May I have a motion to adjourn? Actually, I'm sorry. Any new business for the committee? Apologies. Sorry. Okay. Motion to adjourn. Thank you. Second. All right. Looking forward to seeing you all on Wednesday for the central business tolling vote.